Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining for this session on Miracle Babies on Cloud9. And we sincerely thank Shraddha, Mamatha, and Ramesh, Shraddha's father, and Dr. Padmini Isaac and Dr. Ramesh, the pediatric surgeon, for joining us. And as you know, Miracle Babies is something miracle that happened that has helped these children to achieve what they are today. Today we'll be talking about Shraddha, who is a teenager, and it's all about her. Hi, Shraddha. So this is your photo, Mummy shared with me a few months ago. Now, before we come to the story, just wanted to talk about prematurity issues. Prematurity Day started being celebrated only for the last 2 years. Before that, people had not realized that premature babies are important, and definitely World Prematurity Day has been being celebrated in the world for the last 2-3 years on November. And neonatology is a very, very young branch of medicine. For all practical purposes, it was invented or discovered, you can say, in the last 60 years. Before that, people did not think that premature babies can be saved. The major milestones in saving premature babies started about 200 years ago, but real push for the premature babies came about 60 years ago when the term neonatology was coined, and then ultrasound became routine for pregnancy monitoring since 1970s, and surfactant, which is a medicine, helped to mature the lungs, became available in 80s. It's really the steroids which made a huge impact in the survival of premature babies, which is being given for premature mothers when they're going to premature labor to help mature the baby's lungs. Now, if you look at the latest data available from Government of India, we have a lot of mortality. In other words, we lose roughly about 22.9% of babies, more so of premature babies in India. And the best and worst states for premature babies are listed on this graph. As you can see, Kerala stands best, Karnataka probably fifth in the country, and survival of premature babies is not uniform throughout the country. The neonatal mortality has progressed in the last few years, but still we have a lot of states need to catch up. The funds are available. It's not like India is a poor country. There is a lot of funds available. There is no shortage of funds. It is the expertise and the technology and the team work that is not available. India ranks highest in the number of premature babies. This is an estimate from 2010, which clearly shows even though we have a huge population, the percentage of premature babies which are born in India is almost 13% for the population, which means that per capita premature babies are much, much higher. The preterm births raise the risk of long-term complications, including death in the neonatal period due to infections, high risk of neurodevelopmental problems, cerebral palsy, poor school performance. All these are published literature which drives the parents nervous when they have a premature babies. The nutrition is a major risk factor because we in the neonatal intensive care cause malnutrition because we focus on lungs, brain, heart, and forget the nutrition. And poor nutrition is associated with poor head growth, and poor head growth has got adverse neurological outcomes. With this as the background, there has been numerous publications talking about malnutrition in premature infants, and certainly not all premature babies are the same. As you can see, the premature babies, there are 4 categories of premature babies. One is what we call as a late preterm babies, which was coined in 2005 by the American Association of Pediatrics. The other one is a preterm babies, which is 32 to 34 weeks. Then moderate preterm babies, which is 28 to 32 weeks, and extreme preterm babies, which are less than 28 weeks. And in India, the extreme preterm babies don't exist as the viability is defined in India as 28 weeks. So that's the background of premature babies, and the late preterm babies were coined, as you know, only in 2005 to bring more attention to preterm babies because 70% of all preterm babies belong to this category. And definitely the key facts remain that an estimated 15 million babies are born preterm in the world, and this number is rising, and 3/4 of these deaths happen in the first month of life, and this could be prevented with current cost-effective interventions. So with this, you can understand the anxiety of the parents when they have a preterm babies, because when they have preterm babies, they are nervous about the future outcome. They're nervous about what happens to the premature babies. And definitely women who develop infections, high blood pressure, gestational diabetes, clotting problems, and other things are at high risk of premature births. And the goals and objectives of looking after a premature baby is reduction of childhood disability. And usually, the neonatologist is a team leader in looking after this baby, but it is a teamwork which helps to save the babies, especially born premature. With that background, we would like to talk about Shraddha today, as I mentioned. And Shraddha's mother, Mamatha, was an elderly primee, and her husband, Ramesh, works in Merchant Navy, and that's why he couldn't join us today. And you can imagine Merchant Navy, they always, almost 6 months in a year, they're in the sea. They had conceived Shraddha as their first child after having been married for a few years as planned, and they came to inquire about antenatal classes in Cloudnine at that time. And they had an uneventful pregnancy until 30 weeks. And suddenly, Mamatha went into spontaneous labor and delivered a baby who was weighing 980 grams. With that, I want to ask Mamatha a question. Mamatha, did you ever think that you were going to have a premature baby? And how did you feel when you suddenly went into labor when you came to inquire antenatal classes in Cloudnine? Over to you, Mamatha. Mamatha, can you hear me?
Yeah, to answer the first question, yeah, I never thought that, I would have a premature baby, because through my pregnancy, it was fairly uncomplicated, and Dr. Padmini was, doing an excellent, taking excellent care whenever I would consult her. So there was absolutely no indication of any sort that I could have a premature baby. And and when I actually even went into labor and started having labor pains, initially I didn't even realize it was labor pains. I just thought it is I had eaten something spicy and maybe that's why I'm having some stomach upset. But for whatever it's worth, I thought I'll just come to the hospital and get myself checked. And that is when the duty doctor sort of examined, and then she said, no, this is, you have started having labor pains. And it was quite shocking for me, because I really, at 30 weeks, I definitely did not expect for this to happen. And then I think I was too stunned to really think about anything. And my only thing was, I was just praying that, we would have a healthy baby. That was all that was going on in my mind. And I didn't even, because I never expected about premature baby, I had not even read much about it, or, anything, done any research about it or anything. So I didn't really know what to expect also, even if I, had a premature baby.
Most parents are like you, Mamatha, because they never think that premature babies happen to them, and they are sort of unsuspecting or unexpecting the premature baby. That's why we see so many books expecting the unexpected or unexpected expectations and things like that. So definitely premature babies are not something they announce and come. And most of the times, as you rightly say, you didn't have any high risk factors for prematurity, but you still went into premature labor for whatever reason. And you are absolutely right. You are too shocked to think what happens to the future. Now, Dr. Padmini, you have been delivering premature babies for more than 3 decades. What are the precautions one needs to take as an obstetrician to deliver premature babies, and what sort of neonatal intensive care or a hospital would you recommend? Because most of the times these come unexpected, would you transfer the baby to somewhere else, or do you deliver and transfer, or do you transfer the mother? What are your suggestions and thoughts to the new mothers or new obstetricians? Dr. Padmini.
I have to say, Kishore, in my long years of experience, and not only mine, one of the biggest dilemmas, and being a high-risk pregnancy expert, one of the greatest dilemmas is preterm labor, because it is so unpredictable. We can anticipate many things in pregnancy, especially risk factors, and we know how to cope with it. Once she has a preterm labor, we can prevent the next one. But the first time is always very difficult. There are no indications, and there is no answer found worldwide for the etiology of unexplained preterm labor. I must say, I am extremely happy to be working in Cloudnine with the kind of neonatology team we have, and they give you courage to do preterm labors, and when they come, you don't get so overly worried. And I think if Mamatha was anywhere else, she may not have had this baby saved. She had excellent preterm care. Mamatha came in. We tried to stop her labor with tocolytics. It didn't work. She delivered in her room. In fact, she had almost, you can call it that they have a very quick labor, isn't it? In 2 hours, she delivered. So she delivered in her bed. We shifted her baby to NICU, and due to the excellent NICU care, Mamatha has her baby. And I must congratulate Mamatha and the neonatology team, and Kishore especially, Cloudnine, for this success.
Thank you, Dr.
I'm also glad that Shraddha is doing so well, because there are complications of preterm babies, and she doesn't seem to have any of them.
That's because she has excellent parents and excellent obstetrician and excellent pediatric surgeon who worked as a
Let's all pat each other on the back.
And an excellent neonatologist who gave us so much support.
Yes.
Your support was also
Plus,
very vital, and you were always giving us the right advice on what we should do. That
and
helped.
Dr. Ramesh as well, we mustn't forget his role. He played a large role also in saving Mamatha's baby.
This is what Shraddha looked as soon as she was born. She looked pretty good initially. Within an hour, we realized her food pipe had not fully developed, and her food pipe was actually connected to the windpipe, and that's what we call as a tracheousal fistula, which became obvious soon after birth, because as a routine, at 30 weeks, babies don't have strength to suck or take feeds. So when we tried to pass a tube, it didn't pass. And that's when we needed Dr. Ramesh's help. So
Kishore, can I say something here?
Sure,
Dr. In those days, our ultrasound was not of that higher quality, that we were not able to pick up these kind of things. And esophageal atresia is not very easy to pick up in the first place. And definitely the quality of ultrasound we had in those days was not as good as we have today.
Yeah. So, Mamatha, soon after baby Shraddha was born, first of all, you had to deal with the prematurity. Suddenly, you are told that the baby has a tracheousal fistula, which requires emergency surgery. So, what were your thoughts?
I still remember that very visual. It's a very visual memory that has stayed with me. When you came into the room, I was with my mother. My husband had gone home. I was with my mother in the room, and then you told me that there is a problem, and then the baby would need surgery. For me, I think I was just too stunned at that point to process anything. As it is, having given birth itself was still a bit of a shock for me, and I had not yet processed that. So when you came and told me this, I think my brain just went blank. I really had no thoughts. I didn't know. Then I think I told you, let Ramesh come back, and I will talk to him. So when he again came back, then I called him. I remember calling him and telling him that the doctor is saying the baby would need surgery. So then he came back, and I remember then in the evening with Dr. Ramesh, and you came and met us in the ward, and You explained to us what the issue was, and I also remember you giving us a choice that we could do the surgery either at Cloudnine, or if we are not so confident about your hospital, we could probably go to a different hospital. But that was one thing that my husband and I had absolutely no doubts about. We were very clear that she would be in excellent hands at Cloudnine. So we had no second thoughts about that. That is for sure. But yeah, I think it was very overwhelming. The entire thing was overwhelming. So we couldn't really process the gravity of what was happening actually at that point. So we felt, okay, we are just going to trust the doctors because we don't really know what is happening here. So we are just going to trust our doctors to do their best. That was all that was in our minds at that point.
Yeah. That's really appreciative, Mata. I think that's what has worked in your favor, because not only you trusted us, you trusted the hospital, because we were new at that time, and we had barely started about a few months ago.
Yes.
And Dr. Ramesh, I can see this video where you're operating on this tiny baby, which was as big as your hand. The baby whole size was as big as your hand. So what were your thoughts on operating on this little baby of less than 1 kg in a new hospital with no track record? What challenges did you anticipate and how did you overcome? And how many such babies you had operated upon like this before Shraddha, that is 15 years back? Over to you, Dr. Ramesh.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kishore, Mamatha, Padmini Madam. Most important is Shraddha, the heroine for the day, the star. Okay, so let me add a few things clear. See, I have been in the branch right now for about 30 years. Maybe that time I had some 20 years experience. No doubt about it. We have handled a lot of children with this condition called esophageal atresia with tracheoesophageal fistula. That means there's a double pathology. The child, what happens is there is no foot pipe is not continuous. There is a little gap in the esophagus, that is a foot pipe, and there's a cross connection between the foot pipe and the windpipe. It's a fairly complicated thing because the child cannot swallow, the child cannot assimilate food. At the same time, there's a cross connection through which the air is entering the stomach, and it's a fatal condition if we do not correct it. So it is quite challenging. This is one of the very complicated procedures in pediatric surgery. In addition, because there may be associated anomalies, but this baby, as Kishore pointed out, was fairly small, preterm, less than a kg. As you can see, the baby is less than the size of my hand. So it is extremely delicate. It is just like operating on a feet. So it is extremely challenging. And there was a few other issues where we are not too sure. For example, the fistula is not very convincing. The child's abdomen is not distended. So I remember doing what is called as a bronchoscopy. It is putting in a small endoscope into her trachea to find out the fistula, confirm, and then wait. As you rightly said, those days we didn't have too many cases being done there. So it was sort of my first case to do it, and I was a little concerned about the assistance, the instruments. But let me assure you, the team was fantastic. We went out of the way. We put all that we could. And I think, like all of the people have sold so far, it's a never say die attitude of the neonatologists. The team, headed by Kishore, of course, he's the ringmaster. All of us play our role, but he did a brilliant job in organizing the resources and take it. As Padmini Madam said and Kishore said, these are the babies, not that we have not operated earlier, we have operated quite a few, but still there was always the chances of survival was bleak, particularly in, say, public hospitals where we could not have assured you of this. So it's not about a technical expertise alone, it's about the quality of care post-operatively, where this team, Kishore, I think Girish was there, and Nandini, I don't remember who all was there, but all of them rose to the occasion. They did a brilliant job, and their training abroad made a big difference. In fact, that's exactly where Kishore has appreciated. Kishore and Nandini have to be appreciated further because they were Indians at heart, but went to Australia, went to UK, got trained, and all that expertise they put it here back into our own country. I think it's laudable, and today whatever Shraddha is because of them. Because another point, like what Padmini Madam also pointed out, See, preterm babies, to just make them survive is one. Okay, I know 500 grammars, 800 grammars, maybe 1 kg is surviving, but they have a lot of long-term sequelae. For example, they may have hearing impairment, sight impairment, brain impairment. They may not be as sharp. So, apart from survival, the quality of survival depends purely on the neonatologist. And this team, Kishore, Nandini, and the entire team, have done a fantastic job. Look at Shraddha, how bright she is, how smiling she is. Okay, so this is possible only by the neonatology team. Like we said, each one of us did our part, but the critical part is from the neonatology. They've done a brilliant job. Thanks, Kishore.
Ramesh, I don't know if you remember that I was in the theatre. Kishore and I were in the theatre throughout the procedure.
So now I know your blessings also added to the skills. Thank you very much, madam.
Yeah, wonderful surgeon, excellent surgery you did.
Yes, madam. Very tiny tissues to handle, but I think with God's grace, everything went off well.
Yeah.
So, Mamatha, tell me, how did you feel just looking at the baby with so many tubes connected to her, and you couldn't hold your baby for almost 2 weeks, and you had to see from a distance and talking, and you can see now Ramesh and Mamatha talking to Shraddha. Did you ever think that she was not going to make it? I'm sorry to ask you this tough question, but I think it will be helpful for a lot of parents to deal with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was definitely very, very difficult to see her, just lying there with so many pipes and tubes. And then I remember you telling us that, we can, touch the baby, because that touch will also help. And I remember wondering, okay, where do I touch her? I was so scared to touch her because I didn't want to, disturb any of the tubes and wires, going out of her body. I was, initially, I was not even sure where I could touch her. And it was extremely difficult for me that I could not even hold my baby and I had to wait for, I still remember she was born on the 1st of October. The very first time I carried her was on the 17th of October. So it was very, very painful for me to wait that long and to even not sure and just barely, caress her skin, and that was about it. So it was very tough. It was very tough. And yes, there were times when I did think a couple of times when I think I was not sure if she would make it. I think 2 days after the surgery, I think we came close to losing her. I was still in the hospital, Dr. Kishore. I remember you coming in the middle of the night and waking me up and telling me that she has had a bit of a setback, so we are not sure if she will make it through the night, and that you're doing your best. And of course, I mean, now you can see her, obviously. I mean, you did a great job of taking care of her. But yes, there were a couple of times when I did think that probably she may not make it, and it was an extremely, extremely difficult time. But the one thing that I learned was have faith in God, have faith in the doctors. That's what I think gave Ramesh and me strength to see this whole thing through. And of course, you were always so approachable, both Dr. Ramesh and Dr. Kishore, both of you were always very approachable, ready to answer any questions that we had and understanding what exactly has happened. I still remember you drawing, making a diagram and explaining to us what exactly has happened. So I think that understanding also definitely went a long way in helping us, cope with the entire incident. Yeah.
Sorry, Mamatha, I remember your mother and father stayed with Shraddha in the unit many nights, and Ramesh and you as an extended. What were your thoughts? I mean, did your parents worry about our future, Shraddha's future, and how useful was it to have your parental support at the time?
Oh, it made a big, big difference. It made a huge difference having their support, moral support and physical support. It made a very, very huge difference. And of course, at that point, I mean, they were also not really thinking ahead into the future. The only thing that we wanted, and all of us were praying, was that, we should be able to take our baby back home healthy. She should recover and we should be able to take her home. That was all, I think, that was running in all our minds at that point. We were not really much about what is going to happen, much ahead in the future beyond that. Our focus at that point was just that we want to get her home. That was all that was. So, yeah. And I remember, my father took it a lot harder actually than me, I think, the whole thing. And he was extremely emotional. He would get extremely emotional about it. So, but yes, having them around. So sometimes I would have to, in fact, give him confidence that no, she will be all right and we will take her home. But then, yes, having them around made a huge difference.
So,
one thing, Kishore.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, incidentally, in Sanskrit, one of the meanings of Shraddha is faith.
Okay.
Like what Sri Guru Ravi Shankar says, so from morning till evening, you need to trust people. If you can't trust, for example, right from the policeman, everyone we need to trust. So unless we trust, you don't do it. I think you named her correctly as trust, and because you had trust and we had trust in God and we had trust in each other, I think Shraddha is what she is today. Thank you,
I
Kishore.
also wanted to say, Kishore,
Yeah,
Shraddha is very lucky, and it was a very good decision. When you deliver normally a preterm baby, the chance for the baby's life is much superior to doing a cesarean section, because they say the stress of coming through the birth canal gives the time for the lungs to expand and the babies do better. So in many ways, she was picked out by God. She was a special child.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah.
And Dr. Padmini, I still remember when soon after the delivery, I remember, Dr. Padmini, the first thing you told me was, this is not your fault. Don't blame yourself. You have not done anything wrong. I still remember you telling me that, those words.
Yeah.
Because
invariably, I think when something like this happens, I think by default, we, as a mother, I would probably tend to blame, wondering, what did I do wrong? Why was she born so early?
Yeah.
Most parents
go through that. Mothers tend to blame themselves for what goes wrong when we really don't have the kind of control we think we have.
One other thing I would
absolutely right, Mamatha. Sorry, Ramesh, go ahead.
Yeah, Kishore, Mamatha and Padmini madam, in general we have noticed that nature generally gives extra advantage of survival to female babies. Okay.
Yes.
That's a nature
that also is lucky. Yeah.
So sometimes when we just see a problematic case, we don't know whether they're going to survive. Next question is, what is the gender?
You're quite happy if it's a girl. Yeah. Boys do. So, that is God's plan, Ramesh.
Yes.
The female is important for procreating, so they live better.
So I would like to simply say that it is not Mamatha's fault, but it is Shraddha's rightness to be a female.
Yeah. True.
So you are absolutely right, Mamatha. Most parents feel guilty, and that's why the obstetricians, especially with experience like Dr. Padmini, first and foremost is to reassure the parents that it's not their fault for having a premature baby. That's a very, very crucial part of counseling in the initial stages. And Mamatha, just wanted to ask, what challenges did you face in bringing Shraddha up as a premature baby?
The first 1 year was particularly challenging because despite the surgery and subsequently 2 endoscopies that she underwent, she still would regurgitate her feeds pretty much every feed. So, first time I would feed her half a bottle and then she would throw up. Then again we would go back to feed her, and that's when she would. So it was, and we couldn't lay her flat on the bed or in the crib. We couldn't lay her flat. Her head had to be at an elevated angle. Otherwise, she would turn blue. I don't know, Dr. Kishore, if you remember, we have even rushed her to you a couple of times because she had suddenly turned blue, and you have helped her in those situations as well. And she needed to stay overnight at the hospital then when she was just a few months old. So the first year was particularly challenging. 1.5 years were extremely challenging. But later, okay, once the feeding sort of settled down, she was able to hold in the food. Then everything else sort of fell in place, and she was okay. But yes, she was, as a child, she was definitely underweight, pretty much till she was 10 or 11. She was always underweight, but she was very active, and she would that way there was no trouble as such. So of course, other people would worry about her being underweight, but I was just glad that even though she's not gaining weight, she's healthy and active and showing no signs of being ill. So that was a blessing enough for me. I was not really worried so much. We were, I can speak for my husband also, we were not worried so much about her being underweight, but we were just happy that she's active, and even her cognitive development was also absolutely fine, and she's always been a good student, and she would always grasp things fast, and she started speaking early.
What she has been through, she's meant for very great things, Mamta. She's definitely going to go very high.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right, Mamatha. She had a twin problems. One is not only prematurity. Prematurity itself is a risk factor for malnutrition. On top of that, her food pipe was a problem which needed repair, and repair does not mean goes back to natural type immediately. It takes some time. So she had a difficulty in feeding, and that's where Ramesh's expertise made a huge difference. And the combination of the two puts her at higher risk of malnutrition. So though she was underweight, she was never malnourished. She was continuously doing well and following the centiles, and that's why she reached where she is now. Shraddha, do you want to say anything? Your mom told me that she has told you everything about your baby period. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah. I was really glad that I was put into such good hands. And it's very good that the hospital has a lot of advanced facilities and technology that has helped saving other babies' lives as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
And for those of you who want to know, Shraddha is a teenager now, and she has taken this project called Ahara. Very apt. She herself had a problem with the Ahara in the initial stages, and she is working on it. And she has done this charitable work. And do you want to talk about this Ahara project 1 or 2 minutes, Shraddha?
So it basically works on this sustainable development goal, that is zero hunger around the world. I've actually been working on it.
Yeah, I mean, now she's put a
I've
pause
put a
on
pause.
it, but yeah, it is towards this one of the SDGs of the UN. No? So she chose zero hunger as her topic, and this is all about how trying to educate people to not waste food.
Not waste food, and those who are malnourished also, and also help people who are malnourished.
Yeah.
Sorry to surprise you. Your mom had shared this with me a few months ago. So I thought it's appropriate to talk about this when we are talking about you. Well done, keep it up, and that's a brilliant work. And this is a last graph. I just wanted to show that when parents have a premature baby, they go through shock, denial, frustration, depression, experiment, decision, and finally integration. Your parents have gone through all this, and your grandparents have gone through all this to bring you where you are. And certainly you have been very, very, very special, and that's why we call you Miracle Baby Shraddha. And definitely, I think the team comprising of fantastic nurses and occupational therapists, physiotherapists, Dr. Ramesh, Dr. Padmini Isaac, Dr. Nandini, Dr. myself, and junior doctors have all, as I said, it's a teamwork, have done extremely well in trying to save you. And we are very, very happy to hear all that has happened. And certainly, we wish you all the best for all your future work. And this is what your first party looked like. We all were so excited to send you home. And you were close to 1.5 kgs, if I remember correctly. Do you want to say something, Mamatha?
Yes.
Mamatha, do you want to
I just want to say that, yes, just that I'm extremely, even to this day, I'm extremely grateful to the entire team, and not to forget the nurses. They took such good care of Shraddha. It's unbelievable, like their own child. I doubt if she would have got that kind of love and care in any other place. It was, and of course, the entire team. I'm very grateful. And like Dr. Padmini also mentioned, I don't think she would have survived if we were in any other hospital. I firmly believe that. And I think she was meant to survive, which is why I was drawn to Cloudnine, and she had to be born there. So thank you very much, Dr. Ramesh, Dr. Padmini, Dr. Kishore, and Dr. Nandini also. You really are lifesavers. Thank you.
Just a couple of final words, Dr. Padmini and Dr. Ramesh, and then we'll close the session.
I must say I'm very happy and proud and glad to be in Cloudnine and able to do what I enjoy doing best, that is delivering high-risk babies, and for the excellent neonatology team we have, plus the nurses who in labor room, in the ICU and in the OPD, all are very good and caring. And thank you, Kishore, for starting the institution. As I've always told you, you're a pioneer and you have done extremely well in a difficult field.
Dr. Ramesh.
Yeah, Kishore, I completely agree and echo what Dr. Padmini said. But I will also add one more thing. The biggest motivation beyond all recognition, beyond all money.
Ramesh, you froze.
Yeah?
We didn't hear you.
We didn't hear you. You froze in between.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to say that we completely agree with what Dr. Padmini said about Kishore. He is a pioneer. In fact, he has revolutionized the neonatology in Bangalore and now the whole country. Lovely. But beyond all the name, fame, recognition, money, and everything, what really motivates all doctors is how our babies do well. It's great to see Shraddha the way she is. In fact, if you ask all of us, that is the only thing which actually sustains us to do more and more and more. Thank you, Shraddha, for being what she is. Thank you, Mamatha, for the support. Thank you very much, Kishore, for providing us all an opportunity to relive this apart from what we did earlier. Thank you, Kishore.
Thank you. No, I wanted to do this session, and I sincerely thank Mamatha and Shraddha and Ramesh, which is Mamatha's dad in his absence, for joining us and helping us to raise this awareness for quelling the myths that premature babies have various problems. So you can see that the premature babies provided appropriate care and appropriate teamwork can do very well. And the whole idea was to quell these myths. And certainly Shraddha was complicated in its own way, because not only she was less than 1 kilo, she was premature, and she had a food pipe and a windpipe problem. All that made even more challenging to take care of her nutrition. And definitely, more than anybody, she had the best loving grandparents and parents to cater for her needs. And that's what has made Shraddha what she is today. And certainly she is not forgotten. Food is important. That's why she has started the project called Ahara. And all the best, Shraddha, for your life and future. And sincerely thank you all for joining. And with that, we'll close the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.